Why hello there and welcome to this video, which is the first in my new series of comparing older Lego sets to new Lego sets. This series is going to be a comparison of these sets rather than a review of these sets to show how Lego has changed the ways that they design their Lego sets over the years. So without further ado, let's get into this first video with the Lego Birds sets. So the two sets that we are comparing today are the 21301 Lego Ideas Birds and the 10331 Lego Kingfisher. The Kingfisher being released in 2024 and the Birds being released in about 2015. Piece-wise, the Lego Birds have 580 pieces and the Kingfisher has 834 pieces. So there is about a 300 part difference between the two sets, and obviously the most notable difference is that the Lego Birds created 3 birds from their 500 pieces, whereas the Kingfisher only created 1. So we are going to start from the bases and work upwards. And the last main difference before we get into the sets themselves is that the Lego Bird set was originally a 12 plus set, whereas the Kingfisher is an 18 plus set. So it will be interesting to see how these two sets differ to make it so that there is a 6-year gap between their minimum ages. So firstly, looking at the Lego Birds bases. All 3 of these are very simple bases of just a flat 8x8 tile with a little brick border around the sides, and then 2x8 plates around the bottoms, with a little display plate connected to the base where the birds will sit into it. The exception to this is the Hummingbird one, which had a slightly bigger base plate overall and a flower element as well. Now looking at the Kingfishers one, this one was a lot more complicated with a more circular designed studs not on top base to create a nice curved full circle all the way round. And looking at the underside, there is much more plates used to create this shape. And obviously, on the top of the base, there is actually a lot more detail put into it, using these transparent and clear blue pieces to create the idea of water on the top. And also comes with a bit more detailed plants coming out the side compared to the other one, which just have one little flower. These use new leaf pieces that have only recently come out and help to flesh out the scene a bit more as one cohesive base rather than just a green flat plate. The construction of the plants in these two sets are very similar as well, using these tentacle pieces as the stems going up and then having a head built on top of them. Obviously, different kind of plant for the two sets to fit into the theme of what these two birds are. One back step that I think Lego has taken with these bases is that the original birds got a little plaque next to them with their Latin name on it, whereas the Kingfisher has no such detail at all, when there is quite good space along the front here to put either a sticker piece or a printed tile along the front, or even just in the water area here. But that is just a little minor thing that they seem to have gone back on when creating this set, and would have added just a little bit more polish, I would say, to the Kingfisher's base. But overall, the Kingfisher's base is a big step up compared to the Lego Birds base, with a lot more detail and thought put into how the base is helping elevate the design of the Kingfisher. This brings us on to how the birds are connected to their bases. With the Kingfisher, we have this rod here that is partially Technic into the main base itself, which the Kingfisher actually bricks onto in this gap here, with then this tile going over the top there, and then the rest of the orange bits being built over the top to create a very solid connection between the berg and the base. Whereas the original bergs just use Technic rods that just slot into a small hole in the backside of the display stand, just like that, which both the robin and the blue jay use, and the hummingbird uses this clear piece here to help give the idea that the bird is actually flying and creates a bit more of a dynamic pose. As I demonstrated, these just slot in and out of their bases and aren't really solidly connected in, and this shows how Lego has actually improved the designs by actually creating a joint between the base and the bird that can be hidden inside the bird, rather than just relying on a fairly flimsy Technic pin to just let it sit on the bases. Now looking at the birds themselves, the first thing that jumps out that Lego have clearly improved upon these designs is that whilst the original birds do use studs not on top techniques to create the shapes of all the birds, they have left them with all the studs showing, as you can see quite clearly with the blue jay and the robin. Whereas on the Kingfisher, they have elected to use a load of flat plates to cover up as much as the studs as possible, with only a few studs on the back here being visible, and only the occasional few along the sides of the wings as well being visible. This has helped create a much more sleeker design to the Kingfisher and makes it look a lot more accurate, I would say, to the Kingfisher, and just generally gives the set a lot more polish to it. Now looking at the posability of these sets, they do basically have this same amount of posability to them, which is to say, not a lot. The Kingfisher does have the ability to move its head ever so slightly, like so, to give it a bit of posability, and the wings do adjust slightly up and down, which can help add your own little flair to it. And looking at the birds, these basically have no posability to them, other than being able to turn them around on their bases, and in the case of the robin, move their tail feathers up and down. With the blue jay, there is even less movability, with again just being able to turn, and a slight ability to move the wings. And with the hummingbird, there is literally no posability added to it, with these wings just being solidly brick built. And the head, well, you can move the head slightly up and down more, which is more than these other two birds have. Of the three birds, I would say that the most detailed and accurate one is probably the robin, as this is a very small bird in real life and a very round bird as well, which Lego has done a very good job at creating this look and giving the head and the body a very rounded feel to it. Whereas if we look at the blue jay, you can see that the head is literally a solid block, which does good to get the details of the face and beak, but does give it a very blocky appearance in the face. And the hummingbird, well, you can see here its face is not very detailed at all, with barely even one eye being present in the build. This probably comes from the fact that there is only 500 pieces in this set, and these have to be spread about 3 birds, rather than the 800 pieces that are in the Kingfisher, and that is on only 1 bird, which has also helped increase the size and scale of the Kingfisher as a whole, where compared to the other three, particularly the hummingbird, there is very few pieces used and it is quite small. In terms of nice pieces used, the three birds don't really have that many nice pieces, just basically being standard plates and a few Technic elements to get the build across, possibly with the exception of the robin's claws here, using robot claws as the feet. The Kingfisher also has a limited amount of nice pieces, but there is a few, particularly in the feet as well, which seem to be the horns from the Temple of Doom, which seem to be horns that attach to the side of minifigure helmets. Another interesting technique, stroke interesting pieces used, is how they've attached these wing feathers to the main body using these pins here that go into little rounded holes in the side of the wings that just slot on, which uses the same principle to attach the main wings to the body underneath these flat tiles here. So to conclude, ways that Lego have improved their design process is that they've made more fleshed out bases for the Kingfisher than they originally had in the birds, and they have gone for, rather than studs not on top with the original birds here, they've gone for studs not on top but completely covered them with these flat plates stroke curved tile elements, so to give it a much more sleeker design. And there has been a few more nicer pieces used in the newer model, such as the claws and the wing joints, to create a more fleshed out design. They have also put more thought into creating a more dynamic pose with the Kingfisher, with its wings spread eagle like that, rather than just sat on the perch, or very similar in design to the hoverbird, with it also hovering. However, the Kingfisher does this better by being able to disguise how it is connected to the base into the main bird itself, rather than relying on a clear plastic piece to make it look like it's hovering. One thing that the bird set did better was including a name plaque at the base of the birds as well, whereas the Kingfisher did not include this at all. So yeah, that is all I have to say, other than thanks so much for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.